started by identifying the key information that we thought was necessary for people to know, and then tried to think of creative ways to present it so they would have fun while learning. We generally spent 2 days with each group for about 2 hours each day. The first day was devoted to HIV/AIDS, and the second to the other topics. We workshopped with many different groups, including a soccer team, a former street boys, a widows support group, an HIV-positive group, and others. We always had to adapt our workshop to make it relevant to our audience. The workshops combined lectures to get across the important facts with fun activities to keep the participants engaged. People generally had very little knowledge of the topics we were teaching. They had many misconceptions, particularly with regard to HIV/AIDS, that we had to work hard to clarify. They did know about HIV, since it spread most rapidly in Rwanda during the genocide, but only on a very general level, and did not know many details. I found that one of the most difficult things was finding a way to apply our recommendations to the socioeconomic situation in Rwanda. For example, our nutrition workshop started out by including information about eating 3 meals a day, getting whole grains, etc. But there were a few times where people just laughed at us, because getting just 1 meal a day is a struggle for many people. How can we get adequate nutrition when we're only able to afford 1 meal a day, they asked us. We realized that we had to change our recommendations and always keep this in mind. At the end of each workshop, Sergei left a few moments for participants to talk about what they learned and how we had helped them. This was always extremely rewarding, because they would talk about how happy they were to have the opportunity to learn from us, and they would describe how they were going to change their health-related behaviors. I've always known education was important, but teaching in Rwanda really solidified for me how imperative it really is. What we were teaching is common knowledge in our, quote, developed world. But in Rwanda, it's so rare for someone to sit down with everyday people and just pass on basic knowledge about living a healthy life. If everyone knew some of the basic facts we provided, such as how to protect oneself from HIV, or how to not put a whole cup of sugar in a cup of tea, I think a huge difference could be made. Of course, a person saying that they are going to change their behavior should not be taken as a guarantee that they actually will do so. And we had no way of evaluating if anyone actually changed their behavior. But just being exposed to this information makes them think about it at the very least. In terms of us grappling with the reality that we were Western foreigners teaching Rwandans, I have to say that I haven't figured it out yet. It was always in the back of my mind while I was there, but I don't think there's any right way to deal with it. I would say that after being in South Africa and Rwanda, and I think this is true no matter where one travels, it's really important to express interest in the people you meet and show that you want to learn about them and participate in their customs, traditions, ways of life, etc. If you go to another country and are stuck in your ways, you will forever remain a Westerner and an outsider. But if you're willing to step out of your boundaries, it is much easier to break those barriers. Overall, I would really just say it was an amazing experience and one that should not be passed up. I had a really great time and I'm dying to go back to Africa. And if anyone is going abroad next semester and is hesitant about doing both of these, I would say just do it. It was really cool to be able to become immersed in 2 different countries during my abroad experience. So that's Mangin and Stephi's story. And at the end of the presentation, I will project their contact information, so students who want to ask them more specific questions are more than welcome to do so. So the third student, who is not with us today, is Mangin, and she taught the capacity building workshops. And I will now transform into her. I personally contacted Brian Beckman, the founder and executive director of the Rwandan sports nonprofit Play for Hope, since April, a couple of months before my departure, about my initial role as a researcher and someone who would help out around the office. I was asked to, however, that changed the day I arrived in Kigali, in a challenging yet enriching way. I was asked to instead plan, prepare, and teach capacity-building workshops to leaders of NGOs and faith-based ministries. This was not something that I had anticipated, but luckily, despite my computer hard drive crashing, there's lots of unpredictable stuff, I was able to obtain training and instructional materials and create a week-long curriculum with lessons that each of the members of the class requested. Logistically, the classes ran from Monday through Friday and were half-day sessions. The topics covered in these organizational capacity-building workshops included financial resource management, human resource management, how to develop a mission statement and code of conduct or bylaws for an NGO, how to write a grant proposal, tips on finding and obtaining international funding, and how to identify and locate Rwandan-based organizations to partner with. Most of the people who attended the workshops were founders or directors of locally based NGOs and faith-based ministries. The level of knowledge was varied and also depended on the subject of the lesson. I worked with the same group of people, but there were days where a number of individuals could not attend due to their obligations to the organization or ministry that they were running. It was pretty difficult to gauge the success of these capacity-building workshops immediately. It would take time and require more time being spent learning in the class, and also implementing the lessons learned on the field to get a better sense for the ultimate outcomes of the workshops. I would suggest that to whoever wants to take on a similar type of project, to have a set and narrow curriculum established and have mechanisms that will ensure a positive impact. Sky was there only for 10 days, so that's what she means. As for my positioning as a Western teacher, I felt that the Rwandans had too many high expectations for us simply because we were American college students. While I was open to doing whatever the community wanted, what the community wanted, which was capacity-building workshops, was not something that I was trained or equipped to teach, and this is indicative of the under-resourced nature of some fields in Rwanda. I would say that in terms of minimizing the negative externalities of being a Westerner, seemingly imposing your ideas onto the Rwandans, is something to be extremely cognizant about. There are cultural subtleties that you'll pick up once you're there. Just be sure to be open, inclusive in thoughts, respect the variety of customs and cultures. One great way to break the ice and to also even the invisible yet evident power dynamic is to genuinely make an effort to communicate with those around you in their native language. Sure, it might inspire some well-intentioned laughter about your foreign American accent. We got that a lot. But it really does open up people to you because it shows that you're willing to engage with them with the language that is most comfortable. Also, if you haven't been to places with different cultures, customs, and socioeconomic status, you should read up more about your role as a privileged American. So here's the contact information for Amy, Stephi, and Sky. I'll give you a few seconds to write those down. And Stephi will actually be here during the Parents' Weekend next week and is ready to meet with anyone who has questions to ask. And the parentheses at the end of her phone number should not be there. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to write that down.
They'll also be back on campus in the spring, and we'll be having another event where they'll also have a chance to talk.
So yeah, they'll be back. They've been gone, especially Sky and Amy, they've been gone for a while. They studied abroad in South Africa and then went straight to Rwanda and then straight to New York. So they haven't been here in a long time. They're very enterprising. All right, well, that's the end of my, Amy, Stephi, and Sky's section. Thank you for your attention.